You're listening to Superpower Mamas on the Superpower Up podcast, the show that embraces the art of soulful parenting.
Hello and welcome to Superpower Mamas. I am your host, Laura Greco, and I'm so excited to have you listening today. Our topic is how to get what you want by loving yourself first. And I'm so excited to have Nat as my guest today. Nat, can you share your last name?
Sure, it's Karometry.
There you go. And I love meeting Nat. I've actually participated in a 5-day, I don't know if it was really a challenge or not, but it was definitely a series of times where we did meditative work for ourselves. And what I really loved about when I talked to Nate about things is how he really uses the source of love and respect and dignity within all of us to really help people to achieve what they want, but from a premise of love. So I want to welcome you, Nate. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you, Laura. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, and it's Nat. I know I did it again. well, welcome. We're going to start off with our traditional question, which is, what is your superpower?
I would say that my superpower is love, ever-present love, and essentially the way that it shows up when I meet people it's like a warm embrace. It's like this supportive energy that gives people permission to relax, to let down their guard and be themselves.
And that's so important in any situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when we think of those superpowers, how has that led you to the work that you do today?
Yeah, as with every superpower, it's not just meant for other people, it's meant for ourselves. And so my life journey has been about learning how to love and how to love myself first and, not depend so much on circumstances or other people to be loved or valued or feel secure. Mm-hmm. So, it directly informs my work here. It's my purpose in learning to live as love. And, I think that what happens to a lot of us, especially innovative entrepreneurs, and even in our cultures, we learn from an early age that our love, value, and security is external. It's not within us, and that we have to meet specific conditions in order to feel loved, valued, and secure in order for us to have what we want. And we spend a tremendous amount of our life and energy trying to meet those conditions so that we can feel those ways and then ultimately have those things that we desire. Yeah.
And it truly does affect every part of our lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, in relationships, if we believe that or learn to believe that we can't be ourselves, that someone won't love us for all of who we are, all aspects, the quote unquote good and the quote unquote bad, then we might have a tendency to hide or suppress those parts of ourselves out of fear that we won't be loved. It can affect our health, how much joy we allow in our lives. If we've been taught that work comes first and play comes later, then we always try to meet that condition of always working first. But the thing is, there's always more work to do, so we never get in any play or joy. So, and as entrepreneurs, if we believe that we need to be perfect, or we need to give more, or we need to prove or earn or not need anything in order to be loved and valued, then that drives us. It's this unconscious pattern that drives us to keep on trying to meet those conditions before we can get clients or be paid what we want or take time off or even have our own schedule. I mean, it affects every aspect of our lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a cultural thing, isn't it, that we've been raised always looking outside for approval in everything that we do.
Yeah, and also, with a lot of the clients I work with who are intuitive, they're, maybe they're even empathic. There's a tendency to, like, you tune into how other people are feeling naturally. You know what they need even before they need it, and your peace is dependent on their peace, because if you're feeling their stuff and it's not pleasant, then there's a tendency to want to help them first before you take care of yourself. Because again, if you're feeling all of it, it is tough to be at peace. So that becomes your role. You start to define your own value by, when I take care of other people, then I'm of value. And it becomes this habit of always putting people first.
Mm-hmm. And as our listeners are mamas, that is a strong tendency, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one of the things that, I really value in what you're doing, because I believe that, we can only help those when we are also, we can only help people from our full bucket. So if we're not full within ourselves, then there's no way that we can share something else with others.
Yeah, because, the world as a whole, or at least what we've been taught, is that our value, our worthiness, even how loved we are, comes from what we do for other people. And so we're always, in doing mode. Mm-hmm. Certainly as moms and as mom entrepreneurs, there is so much to do and keep up with, and often it can feel like there's not enough time. Mm-hmm. But when we make time to nourish ourselves from within, to nurture ourselves, to fill up our bucket, to use your phrase, with this connection to our source, our truest selves, to feel whole and complete and fulfilled from within, then we actually are much more present to our family and our clients. We're less likely to be triggered by things that happen, right? Because it's a different frequency. When we're fulfilled and in a frequency of love, we're less affected by people that are stressed out. So we show up so much better when we take care of ourselves and tune into that frequency of love.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that so much. I know a little earlier, we were just talking, you shared something that was key about that, striving for perfection, doing things perfect. And I know that's a tendency that I had. And coming from an abusive home, I grew up thinking, oh my gosh, if I just do it well enough, everything will be better than where I came from. Mm-hmm. And I did fall into a little bit that, looking to do things absolutely perfect. And when something came up that was pretty major with my children, I was actually blindsided by it, because I was like, I just tried to do everything perfect, and this one thing showed up in my life, and now I had to really reevaluate where I was coming from. Mm.
Yeah. The universe is great in those respects, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, but it really taught me humility, and the fact that there was so much more to know, and to really by taking care of myself and then my children as well, we were able to move through this beautifully. Honestly, the family banded together. A lot of things came together. But through that process, there was a lot of learning that took place about, just letting go a little bit and, learning to trust.
Yeah, I think that seems to be a common theme here is trusting. Perfectionism is one of the I created a framework called the condition of receivers, and there are 5 of them, and one of them is the perfectionist, and it's like, the thing that we believe that condition we believe we must meet in order to feel loved, valued, and secure, right? And as you shared, Laura, growing up in an abusive family, it's so easy to think. I'm going to take that back. It's not so easy to think, but we're conditioned to believe that perfection leads to peace, or it leads to, and maybe in a volatile, abusive household, perfection means everything is in order, and so there's less likely to be something that's going to trigger other people, right? And so, right. We go around tiptoeing and trying to make everything perfect, in hopes that we don't set someone off and then be yelled at, and then that feels like you're not being loved. Yeah. So when we grow up with this deep sense of fear of not being able to be ourselves or not being able to relax, it's so challenging to trust in that trust in our source or our true self and let go, because all we've known up until now is how to control our circumstances and control ourselves so that we get what we want.
Yeah. We're going to continue this discussion, but first we have to take a short break. Nat, so could you please share with our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to my name, which isn't always easy to spell, but it's natchiropmetry.com. And actually, if you go to natchiropmetry.com/CR, they can download the PDF with the information about the condition of receivers.
Perfect. And we'll talk more about that when we get back from our break. But you've been listening to Superpower Mamas with Nat Chiropmetry, and and we've been talking on the topic of how to get what you want by loving yourself first. We'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
Welcome back, everybody. We've been speaking with Nat, and we've been talking on the topic, how to get what you want by loving yourself first. And before we went for break, we were talking about that topic of perfection. And Nat, you mentioned to me that you have, in the interview here, that you have a system that you developed where perfection was part of that. Would you like to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I developed a framework that helps people see. It's like see in the mirror how they're showing up and where they've taken on a role. What I call the conditional receiver, to take on that role because they learned that they needed to meet a condition in order to feel loved, valued, and secure, so they could receive what they want. But they've now used that condition. They use it unconsciously to think, well, before I can have what I want, I need to meet this condition of perfection, or of overgiving, or of proving or sacrificing or not needing. Those are the 5 conditional receivers. So they believe they need to meet one of these conditions or all of them. I'm all 5, so no judgment about, if you see yourself in all of them. But so not only do we believe that we need to meet the condition to have what we want, but we also use that condition as a safeguard. It's our protective mechanism to prevent ourselves from being hurt again, or feeling bad or not getting what we want. So it becomes this vicious cycle of never really getting what we want. And ultimately, we talked earlier about fear. It all comes from fear. When we have a memory, an energetic memory within our bodies of fear, and we hit up against that in any new situation, we're not really reacting to the new situation, reacting to the energy that comes up in us. And then we think that it's going to be like the last time, and so we react to that and we pull back, right? And so this idea of getting what you want by loving yourself first is that we need to create a new environment within ourselves where we feel safe and where we feel loved and where we value ourselves by putting ourselves first and being ultra nurturing and compassionate with ourselves. Because every time that we judge ourselves, every time that we compare ourselves, think that we're not where we're supposed to be yet, think we're not doing enough, all of that feeds the fear in our bodies.
Yeah.
Right? And so no wonder we keep on repeating the same types of themes and things that show up in our life, never really feeling like we get what we want, because we keep on creating and feeding the fear in our bodies. And so to change that, we need to change the energy. And we change the energy by being kinder to ourselves. And, when things don't go right, we still love on ourselves, right? Just like you would nurture your children, right? As moms, if something like, imagine your kid's learning to walk for the first time and he or she takes a step and you applaud, right? You're cheering your child on. If he falls, you don't judge him and say, "Oh man, you're doomed," right? Like you better not think about walking ever again. We don't do that.
No.
But for some reason, something changes over the years and we start to treat ourselves that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many reasons why, but I don't know that the reasons why are so important is the recognition that this does happen.
Right. And that's such an important point, Laura, because so often we can spend so much energy trying to fix or trying to figure out where this habit came from. And that's not really where the energy is best spent, right? The best spent energy is meeting ourselves where we are and nurturing ourselves or loving ourselves going forward. Because then we can have that sense of love and fulfillment within, and we're not trying to change ourselves or control other people to get it.
Exactly. And so as a mom, I think about moms today as when I was being a mom and how vital it was for me in my kind of early stages of not knowing so much about all of this that we're talking about today. But I know that there were times that I needed to take time for myself in order to be that best person for my my children. I have 4 daughters. So, for example, I would make sure I got myself up a little bit earlier than everybody else to spend some time on just me and something that was important to me spiritually, or even just going out and taking pictures, of the sunrise, something that really filled my soul. And what a difference that made in the day.
Yeah.
And there
Yeah.
was no judgment around it. It just was beautiful.
Right. And I love that so much, Laura, because it's such a simple act and it doesn't take a lot of time, and it fills your soul. And I think it's so important to remind moms and mom entrepreneurs, because when we're in the thick of stress and we think we don't have time, we think that we don't have time for ourselves.
Yeah.
But we seem to have plenty of time for everyone else, right? So just that little bit of like, what feeds my soul, it makes such a difference. It's amazing.
Yeah, really, it did for me. I know. Another little tool that I used while they were growing up is I realized that their nap time was actually just as important to them as it was to me. So as they were growing out of the nap time, and during summer months when they were out of school, I would actually say, okay, we had a period of about an hour where we all like read or sat quietly or did something quietly. And we did that for me as much as for them, where I just got that break and so did they. And it just helped with the rest of the day so much, better. So it's another little tool that I learned, along the way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that we could all benefit from nap time, or these, quiet times where we're not always trying to get something.
Right. And I was running a business also from my home. So it wasn't that I was just doing nothing. I had quite a full schedule. But I knew that if I didn't take some of those times for myself, I wasn't going to be able to be present in my family the way I wanted to be. I didn't want to repeat the things that I came from. So the effort was in striving to find some other way to do it. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's a lot of moms out there today that also, they know that there's certain behaviors that they don't want to repeat that they've experienced in their life. However, there are those stressful times where they find themselves in reaction and realize that they're actually repeating what they swore they would never repeat. And it seems that taking that time away, for yourself helps you to come to a situation a little less stressed in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. And also if someone arrives at a place where they're repeating habits that they said they wanted to get rid of, I think it's also equally impactful to just make space for those habits. I have a practice of saying yes to everything, right? Because we are so often, we're so used to hearing no, and we say ourselves, no, I should be beyond this or whatever. Just the practice of saying yes, I acknowledge this is what I did. Yes, I know I said that I didn't want to do this anymore, and yes, I did it again, and yes, it's okay, and yes, this is what I am choosing instead going forward, and yes, it's okay if I do it again, right? Like all this time of just saying yes to yourself, it changes your energy.
Love that. Yes. 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 It's true, because the other teaching that we find drifting around out there is that, we shouldn't do this or we shouldn't do that, and we shouldn't behave in this way. We're enlightened or progressing, right? However, not acknowledging how we feel when we're angry, or, just acknowledging that it's there, is part of the process of evaluating what is next going forward, not in judgment, but in self-love. Okay, I was triggered. This happened to me. This is how I reacted. And so where's this coming from? How can I love myself enough to say, is there a new story here I could create for myself?
Yeah. I would almost even say to not say enough. I would just say, how can I love myself and then do this? Because I don't know. I think, I guess it depends from each person, but saying, how can I love myself enough is almost like a judgment.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see that. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, you have some wonderful things that you're teaching. And I'd like to ask you another question I like to ask a lot of the guests. And that is, how valuable do you see it for the mommypreneur or the mom who's even a stay-at-home mom to retain or maintain some of her autonomy in a family situation?
Oh, I think it's really important. I think that, we're all unique individuals. We're all unique expressions of magnificence. Which is another way to say that we're pieces of a puzzle and each piece is important, right? So, I think that we lose a lot when people lose their identity in any relationship, whether it's a family or a romantic or anything else.
Yeah.
And we each bring a unique energy that creates something beautiful. So when we lose ourselves in any relationship, it starts to eat at us. At first, it might seem like the best thing to do, based on whatever conditioning we received. And I've done this in the past in previous relationships, but after some time, it eats at you, and it never ends well. It ends well in a sense where your soul, that deepest part of you, is wanting to be expressed, and it will start to build up like a volcano erupting, and then it will come out. And sometimes it can ruin relationships. It can cause people to not want to be with each other because it's taken it's misunderstood.
Yeah.
But ultimately the beauty that comes out of it is people can stand up for who they are.
Yes.
So, whatever path that is, you trust it. But if you're aware of it now, then certainly, carve out, or be not necessarily carve out, but be conscious of expressing yourself fully, not holding back.
Right. And I see that as valuable to, like we're talking to moms today, that they are able to know who they are and express that. I think that's vital, not only to them, but it's also so important that their children observe this. Yeah.
Because sometimes we get into that role as a parent, and we think, well, I'm just a parent. This is my role. But that it is just a role of many. It's not who we, essentially who we are. We have many expressions. So, you might be the mom, but you also might be an artist. You might also be an engineer. You might be the entrepreneur. I mean, there are so many different avenues through which we get to express ourselves. And I think it's important that we express all of them. They might not be as vocal all the time, but just to have them present, not to hide them or suppress them, is important.
Yeah. Nat, I want to ask you another question. You've shared some really beautiful things, and I'm thinking about not just the picture of right now, but how do you see the work that you're doing as affecting a more universal population, or how by observing these kinds of things, how does this affect the world?
That's a big question. Well, I really believe that each person makes a difference, and also what we see in the world is a reflection of our global consciousness. So we're each contributing to what is showing up in the world, even all the stuff that we don't like, right? It's showing us what is still in ourselves. Maybe there is still some hate or fear or discrimination or judgment or whatever within ourselves that gets expressed out pictured in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that the more that we can trust ourselves, to trust that we're supported, that we can trust wholeheartedly into love, in the universe supporting ourselves, and that there is abundance, right? An abundance of love, that we can. And to step back, it's a practice. It's not a fix. Like, we don't need to be fixed. We're not broken. It's just that we have learned a way of being that has served us up until now. It has served a purpose. And if people are wanting to move forward to affect the world, it's being the change, right? Yes. And we need to do it for ourselves, by ourselves, meaning not blocking out the world, but being that best lover to ourselves first. And that will naturally ripple out and affect other people around us. When we open the door for ourselves, we open the door for other people.
Yes. So true. We have to close out our show for today, but it's really, really been fun talking with you, Nat. You've shared some really beautiful truths that will no doubt help many people. I know they help me too. Is there something you'd like to close with that you feel the listeners would need to hear from you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Laura, for having me. It's been such a joy to have this conversation with you. I really feel like it's more of a conversation than an interview. Yeah. And I would leave with just reminding people to be themselves, to know that their presence, their presence makes a difference. Just kind of reminding people again that it's not so much about what you're doing, but it's your present, that it's already worthy, valuable, and making a difference. So I would leave people with that.
I love that. Thank you so much. And how can they reach you again, please?
Yeah, they can visit me at my website, natkaropentree.com. And to receive a PDF of the conditional receivers that I talked about earlier, it goes into detail of each of the qualities and also shares a way to start open up to a new way of being. So they can go to natkaropentree.com/CR for conditional receiver.
Thank you so much for being on our show today. And thank you, all you listeners, for being here too. And I just want to say to go out and love yourselves for the treasure that you are. You are courageous and strong, and you have what it takes. Changing the world starts in your own hearts and in your own homes. So own your superpowers and go out and be you. Thank you.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.